Winning the 2024 election for either political party could hinge on a key, yet often overlooked group, young voters. During the 2022 midterms, young people turned out in record numbers. A Pew Research poll shows Gen Z overwhelmingly supported Democrats in those elections. And more recently, young people showed up in high numbers at college campuses to vote in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, an election that gave liberals control of the court for the first time in 15 years. It's clear the GOP has a problem here, and so far their only solution seems to be suppressing the vote of young people. Listen to this audio, obtained by progressive activist Lauren Windsor of Republican legal strategist Cleta Mitchell. Cleta Mitchell is talking to a room full of GOP donors.
They basically put the polling place next to the student dorms, so they just had to roll out of bed, vote, and go back to bed. And we need to build strong election integrity task forces in those counties. Wisconsin is a big problem because of the because of the polling locations on college campuses. There are 501c3s. Their goal for the Supreme Court race was to turn out 240,000 college students in that Supreme Court race. And we don't have anything like that, and we need to figure out how to do that and how to combat that.
NBC has not independently verified that audio. But joining me now is Victor Shi, Strategy Director for Voters of Tomorrow and the host of On the Move with Victor Shi. Victor, good morning. I know it's early where you are, so I'm especially grateful that you got up to join me this morning. In response to that audio that we just played, you tweeted that Gen Z is fired up and rejecting what this Republican Party stands for. What do you have to say to those in the Republican Party who are intentionally trying to make it harder for young people to vote by curbing voter access on college campuses and same-day voter registration, trying to get rid of that, and then not accepting student IDs?
Well, first of all, Katie, it's so great to see you. But my response to that is I think what you're seeing right now is a natural response to a generation that is more diverse, that is younger. And the response to that isn't to meet us where we are. The response isn't to engage with young people on the issues. The response by this Republican Party right now is just like you said, and just like we heard in that audio testimony, is to limit young voters from turning out. It's to suppress our voices. It's to silence us like they did in Tennessee. And so that's a response to our turnout, like you said, in 2018, in 2020, in 2022, and in the latest Wisconsin Supreme Court election. But if there's one thing that's clear about Generation Z and young people that are more politically active than ever before, it's that we aren't afraid to make our voices heard. And in 2024, the majority of us will be eligible to vote for the first time. And so what you're seeing right now from this Republican Party, where they're trying to take away our rights, where they're trying to make it harder to vote, is that I think it's going to have a real backlash in 2024, especially among young voters who are just kind of tired and sick of this Republican Party and who just want our lives to be improved and to change. And so my message to them and for all of those Republicans who are trying so hard to limit us from voting on college campuses and from actually voting is I think they should pay attention and just be sure that, you know, they pay attention and watch out for Gen Z in 2024.
You know, Victor, there's currently a major legal battle right now over access to a key abortion medication. The Supreme Court just kicked back that litigation to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. A Pew Research poll shows 71% of young women support access to this drug, mifepristone. What other issues are young people talking about, Victor, that's going to drive them to the polls?
So what we saw from 2022 is, just like you said, abortion was the #1 issue for turnout among young people. And it makes total sense because this is the generation that for the first time in 50 years has not grown up with the access to a safe and just safe abortion. And so I think with this 2024 election, some of the most important issues going forward are student loan forgiveness. I think for young people across the country, accessing just a affordable quality education is becoming harder than ever before. And that's something that, to this administration's credit, has been something that they've engaged on particularly well. And then I think the other issue that's going to be particularly important this election is gun violence, because no matter where you come from, this is a generation that has grown up with mass shooter drills. And we are just so tired and fed up with just having to go through this almost on a weekly basis. We can't go anywhere and feel safe. And so for young people, I think gun reform is going to be a key issue. But you have a host of other issues like climate change, accessing a livable wage. And so all of these issues, I think, are really immediate for young voters. But I think the top three are going to be reproductive rights, student loan forgiveness, and gun reform.
Victor, young people, they show up when it matters. We saw it, protests in Nashville when Republicans ousted 2 Democratic state reps after that deadly Covenant shooting a few weeks ago. Just this week, students in Florida staging a walkout over Governor Ron DeSantis' extreme draconian policies. I wanted to say one statistic that really stood out for me. Between 2018 and 2022, registration among 18 to 19-year-old voters jumped 66% in the state of Idaho. And in the 2022 midterms, about 1 in 8 voters overall were under the age of 30. I'm older than you, Victor, so I have to ask, what does it take for people like me and my generation? What can we do to help to make sure that that youth voter turnout occurs in 2024?
I think the most important thing that anyone can do right now as we head into 2024 is to really engage with young people and have those conversations. One of the things that we saw worked particularly well in 2022 was peer-to-peer conversations and individual conversations with young voters. And that's what really mobilized young voters to pay attention. That's what got us engaged. That's what got us to register to vote and ultimately turn out. And so I think for whether you're the Democratic Party, whether you're just at home wondering what you can do, the most important thing I think is just to have those conversations, remind young voters where they can go register to vote, remind them where their polling location is. Those reminders really help. And I think it really shows young people just the education and the tools needed to be active civic participants in our democracy. And then beyond that, I think it's, giving them the resources they need to amplify in social media. This is a generation that is more active on social media than any other generation. I think if people can point them in the right direction and give them the facts and the resources, that goes a long, long way with our generation.
Victor Shi, Gen Z voters, all you young voters, you've got the Republicans running scared. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I appreciate you.
Thank you.